Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamuna Niravana Chari Yamuna Niravana Chari Natiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya This morning we'll be continuing with Uddhava Gita. So far we've covered chapters 7 and the first part of chapter 8. This takes place in Dwarka. It takes place when Uddhava understands Krishna is going to leave. There's a whole series of events leading up to this. The cursing of the Yadus because of Samba and the other boys spoofing on the Brahmanas, or the Brahmanas cursed that the lump of iron that was spoofing the pregnant Samba, that child will be the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, so they were cursed. You'll be destroyed by that lump of iron. The demigods came, just chapter 6. Demigods came to Krishna, indicating the purpose for your appearance, which we appealed for you to come, has now been fulfilled. Demoniac kings have been destroyed. So as you wish, you may return to the spiritual world. And they departed. Then next section, Krishna began to contemplate, yes, the stage is already set by the cursing of the Yadu dynasty. They should also return. But one person I'm going to leave behind, and that's Uddhava, because she has the qualification to two things: give my association to the sages of Narayan Rishi in Badrikashram, and to travel about the earth, giving the teachings that I'm going to give him. So he's giving teachings. And Uddhava understands Krishna's plan or disposition. He's going to depart. So he comes to Krishna, and as you see, appealing to Krishna, please take me with you. And the other appeal is what the whole subject of Uddhava Gita is. That is, I'm very attached to the temporary, to family, this and that. And how do I become free from that attachment? So the first three chapters, 7, 8, and 9, just to characterize it in a general sense, is Jnana Mishra Bhakti. By knowledge, one can become detached from the temporary, because that was his question. But the goal of detachment is bhakti, not just detachment. And so Krishna gives a simple answer. Uddhava says, yeah, but it's hard. So then Krishna begins explaining further by making reference to a discussion between an Avaduta Brahmin and King Yadu. The King Yadu is an ancestor for both of them. Krishna and, just like Krishna and Arjuna are cousins, Krishna and Uddhava are cousins. Krishna's father and Uddhava's father were brothers. They're cousins. So they have the same ancestor, King Yadu. So King Yadu one day came across an Avaduta Brahmin and started asking him, how did this happen? Describing his apparent material good features, and young and full of vitality, and fit for sense enjoyment, and you've gone the other direction. How'd this happen? So the Avaduta Brahmin starts narrating how it happened. And he learned from 24 gurus knowledge and detachment. And those 24 gurus are things of this world, like elements, or birds, or different entities. And from them he learned something about transcendence. And is speaking both in terms of these are instructors for me, and second is those who are sadhu, they're instructive for one who is a sadhu, how to live a sadhu life. And that's the theme. And we're going to continue with text 21. And the topic here, the guru that he's learning from, well, we'll hear. It's Previously, it was the fish, because the fish is conquered by his tongue. And he's now describing how a sadhu can become free from that being victimized by the tongue. The previous verse described if one totally focuses on the tongue, then the other senses may be controlled, but in the absence of some requirements of the tongue, then the tongue will start hankering more and hankering more and hankering more and hankering more. So this extreme, that extreme is not being advised by the Avadhuta Brahman. And now it's text 21. Although one may conquer all the other senses as long as the tongue is not conquered, it cannot be said that one has conquered or controlled his senses. However, if one is able to control the tongue, then one is understood to be in full control of all the senses. Sound familiar? It's Rupa Goswami's teachings, right? Rupa Goswami's teachings, Atak Krishna Namadi. So Rupa Goswami drew from the scriptures. That's what the 6 Goswamis did. Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipyano Saddharma Sangstapako. They studied the scriptures to establish essential truths, and that's what Rupa Goswami did, and here's one of the sources. The BBT purport reads, by eating, one gives energy and activity to all of the senses, and thus, if the tongue is uncontrolled, all of the senses will be dragged down to the material platform of existence. Therefore, by all means, one must control the tongue. If one fasts, then all the other senses become weak and lose their potency. The tongue, however, becomes more greedy to taste delicious preparations, and when one finally indulges the tongue, all of the senses quickly go out of control. That was the previous text. Therefore, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur advises that one accept Mahaprasadam, or the remnants of the Lord's food, in a moderate proportion. Since the tongue's function is also to vibrate, one should vibrate the glorious holy name of the Supreme Lord and taste the ecstasy of pure Krishna consciousness, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Raso varjam, raso pyasya param drishtva navartate. 959 Bhagavad Gita. Only by the higher taste of Krishna consciousness can one give up the deadly lower taste that keeps one imprisoned in material bondage. Paragraph. So now he's going to, the BBT commentary is going to summarize. Bhaktisiddhanta wrote a specific commentary on all of these verses from Uddhava Gita because they're so important. So we'll this is the BBT summary, and then we'll read what Bhaktisiddhanta actually wrote. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that as long as one's intelligence is materially covered, one cannot understand the pleasure of Krishna consciousness. Trying to enjoy without Krishna, the living entity leaves the abode of the Supreme Lord, called Brajabhumi, and comes down into the material world, where he quickly loses control of his senses. One becomes particularly victimized by the tongue, belly, and genitals, which exert intolerable pressure on the conditioned soul. That's nectar of instruction right here. These desires subside, however, when one reestablishes one's blissful relationship with the Lord, who is actually the reservoir of all pleasure. One who is attached to the taste of Krishna consciousness automatically follows all the rules and regulations of religious life due to spontaneous attraction to Vishuddha Sattva, or the mode of pure goodness. Without such spontaneous attraction, one is certainly bewildered by the pushing of the material senses. Paragraph. Even the beginning stage of devotional service, called sadhana bhakti, or regulative practice, is so powerful that it brings one to the platform of anartha nivritti, where one becomes free from unwanted sinful habits and gains relief from the pressure of the tongue, belly, and genitals. Thus, one is delivered from the bondage of material addiction and can no longer be cheated by the allurements of material energy. As it is said, all that glistens is not gold. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur recommends that we consider the following song written by his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he gives the whole song, Sharira Vijajal song, and then the translation, which we all know. Here's Bhaktisiddhanta's purport. The senses of those in the bodily conception of life can never be controlled, because such persons are bereft of the mellows of devotional service. Those with uncontrolled senses try to enjoy the objects of the senses, which are distinct from the spiritual realm of Raja, and so they end up becoming devoted to the belly and genitals. Therefore, until one comes to the platform where he can see everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, he should utilize everything in his possession for the service of Krishna without attachment. Only in this way can one conquer his material desires, which are difficult to subdue. A devotee who in the beginning is unable to traverse the path of attachment, raga marg, must follow the regular principles. One's desire for material enjoyment will not cease until they are replaced by desires to serve the Supreme Lord. Paragraph. When a devotee attains the platform of bhava on the strength of his regulative devotional service, then, as a result of becoming free from anarthas, he becomes a traveler on the path of attachment. It is only then that one becomes liberated from gross urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, as well as from the subtle urges for profit, fame, and adoration. At that time, he is no longer bewildered by the flowery words of the Vedas, which tempt one to remain in a temporary world of material enjoyment. That means, karmakanda, basically. The flowery words of the Vedas phrase refers to that. You do this, you get this, that, benediction, and so forth. When one can control the urges of his body, mind, and speech, then all his anarthas are eliminated. In this regard, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written the following song, the meaning of which should be discussed by everyone. And that's Sharira Vijajal with the translation. Now here's Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is summarizing what has been covered just in this chapter 8. In Burijan's backward glance, he says chapter 7 has 9. The acharyas say it has 8, gurus. So so far in chapter 8, the deer, the elephant, the moth, the honeybee, and the fish. This is the 5 senses. The deer, attracted by sound. The elephant by touch. The the moth by form or flame. The honeybee taste, he wants honey, and smell, and thus invite destruction. So this taste is something connected to both the fish and the honeybee, because the honeybee likes honey too. Human beings are also attracted to these 5 objects of the senses. If one becomes attached to sense objects, one's degradation is inevitable. It's the Vishwanath. The tongue, which is the leader of all the other senses, and which induces the other senses, is potentially the most harmful. Therefore, one should take special care to conquer the tongue. The purport is that if one fasts, his other senses can be regulated, but his tongue demands will further increase. That's the previous verse. And by indulging the tongue in sense gratification, all the other senses will become agitated. Therefore, one should control this tongue in such a way that all the other senses, which are subordinate to the tongue, are also controlled. What is the method of conquering the tongue? One should loudly chant the holy name of the Supreme Lord and thus experience the ecstasy of kirtan. By honoring remnants of the Supreme Lord's food, one can control his tongue. A very short commentary by Jiva Gosvami. The translation of the verse that he presents. Although one may conquer all the other senses, as long as the tongue is not conquered, it cannot be said that one has controlled the senses. However, if one is able to control the tongue, then one is understood to be in full control of all the senses. Conquering the tongue, one conquers everything. This happens automatically if one can control the tongue. Jiva Goswami. So I'll leave it to your imagination, because we're not going to continue this for, several months, because it's going to take several months to cover all this. From chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9. And it's all on the same, it's not all on simply controlling the senses, but it's knowledge and detachment. For the purpose of removing obstacles on the path of bhakti. Because that's Uddhava's question. I want to know you. He does, but he's speaking as if he's one who doesn't. And I don't know you because I'm attached. What do I do? So, detachment to strengthen the attachment to Krishna. It's in Bhagavad Gita. It's now being expanded in Bhagavatam. So, my experience of having gone through this, of course, it's been almost a week of other things. But my experience of going through all this is, okay, I get it. Control the senses, right? Yeah, okay. Knowledge and detachment, right. Okay. And, the misfortune is, although we get it, a moment passes and there we are again, forgetting it. Because of habit. Because of contamination. So it's a gradual process. We continue hearing, etc. Here's something that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written that touches on this verse and also the principle of this section. Gaudiya Kantahara Sadhana Bhakti Tattva. Sadhana Bhakti Tattva. So that's good lessons for us. And the subtitle is, The Senses Are Like Wives, and the Tongue is the Most Powerful. So there's 3 verses. My dear Lord, O infallible one, my position is like that of a person who has many wives, all trying to attract him in their own way. For example, the tongue is attracted to palatable dishes, the genitals to sex with an attractive woman, and the sense of touch to contact soft things. The belly, although full, still wants to eat more, and the ear, not attempting to hear about you, is generally attracted to mundane songs and music. The sense of smell is attracted by sweet fragrances. The eyes are attracted by beautiful forms, and the active senses are attracted elsewhere. In this way, I'm certainly embarrassed. Now that's a verse from Bhagavatam 7.9.40. This Gaudiya Kantahara is simply a selection of shlokas. That's what a Kantahara is. It's like Prabhupada's favorite verses, or Gaudiya Vaishnav's favorite verses. That's the term that's used sometimes, is Kantahara. In one of the very last books that Bhaktivinoda wrote was Bhagavat Arka Marichimala, which was the same thing. And it's topic by topic, and he takes a topic, and then he selects verses from the Bhagavatam that are illuminating that topic. So you can read the index, topic by topic, and get selected verses that illuminate each topic. That's one of his 100 books, towards the end of his life. So this is that kind of thing. Now, reference here is to this verse, 11.8.21. Even if a person has conquered every sense other than the tongue, he cannot be said to have subjugated his senses until he has conquered the tongue and the sense of taste. The sense of taste is the strongest sense, semicolon. It is the most difficult to control, especially when it becomes more acute as the result of hunger. And then the final verse is from Antya-lila Chaitanya Charitamrita. One who is subservient to the demands of the tongue, and who thus runs here and there, devoted to the genitals and belly, cannot attain Krishna. Okay, so we're going to discuss one more verse. That's text 22, just for a little variety's sake. This is some illustration that Shruti Mangara helped to help illustrate this Uddhava Gita. She's working on chapter 10 right now. So this is from chapter 8, and you see the setting. It's a country scene, and there's a sadhu sitting. And the text is from this purport for 21. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that as long as one's intelligence is materially covered, one cannot understand the pleasure of Krishna consciousness. One who is attached to the taste of Krishna consciousness automatically follows all the rules and regulations of religious life due to spontaneous attraction to Vishuddha Sattva, or the mode of pure goodness. Without such spontaneous attraction, one is certainly bewildered by the pushing of the material senses. So, she's been very creative in coming up with illustrations, graphics for these verses. Here's text 22. O son of kings. This is the Brahmana speaking to King Yadu. Previously in the city of Videha. Where's Videha? Where is Videha? What do you know about Videha? Yes, yes. Kingdom of Janaka. In the city of Videha, there dwelled a prostitute named Pingala. Now please hear what I have learned from that lady. The Avadutta Brahmana's got some conversation going with Pingala. The whole chapter is called, the whole chapter, 8, is the story of Pingala. So she's one of the gurus. It's not like she had some discussion. He's observed something about what happened with her. Vishwanath's commentary. Now, the Brahmana will describe what he learned from Pingala, the prostitute, by narrating her story. And Pingala learned distaste from material enjoyment. Her story is now told. Jiva Goswami writes in Krama Sandarbha, though this section concerns Gyan, the Avadutta Brahmana shows the highest bhakti in the story to be narrated. I think I'll go on. Text 23. Once that prostitute, desiring to bring a lover into her house, stood outside in the doorway at night, showing her beautiful form. And commentary reads, by dressing in attractive ways and making various sensual bodily gestures, the prostitute Pingala would attract her lovers. Sankete means in the place for enjoyment. She stood there to attract someone. Text 24. Oh, best among men, this prostitute was very anxious to get money, and as she stood on the street at night, she studied all the men who were passing by, thinking, oh, this one surely has money, and I know he can pay the price, and I am sure he would enjoy my company very much. Thus she thought about the men on the street. And Vishwanath's commentary, people who were attached to enjoying an intimate relationship with a woman would come to her house and pay a handsome amount. Oh, best among men, the prostitute was very anxious to get money, and she stood on the street at night. She studied the men who were passing by, thinking, oh, this one will surely have money. Pay the price. Okay. And text 25:26. It's also short. We'll end here. As the prostitute Pingala stood in the doorway, many men came and went, walking by her house. Her only means of subsistence was prostitution, and therefore she anxiously thought, maybe this one who is coming now is very rich. Oh, he is not stopping. But I'm sure someone will come. Surely this man who is coming now will want to pay me for my love. And he will probably give lots of money. Thus, with vain hope, she remained leaning against the doorway, unable to finish her business and go to sleep. Out of anxiety, she would sometimes walk out toward the street, and sometimes she went back into her house. In this way, the midnight hour gradually arrived. And Vishwanath's commentary, the word nishitam indicates that she waited till midnight, but no one availed of her services. So there's lots more verses from the prostitute. Let's see. I think there's some commentary here. No. Okay. So, normally we don't think of prostitutes as gurus, but this Avadhuta Brahmana is not like he had a conversation with her, but he's making observations. You know, there's specifically in the earlier stages of chapter 7, when Krishna was introducing the topic of the Avadhuta Brahman, it was very explicit that when the king said, "Where'd you learn these things?" he said, "I didn't learn it by hearing." Then, you know, that's Shabda Pramana. He didn't have a guru that he heard from. It was, you know, the senses and reasoning, Pratyaksha and Anuman. But he was a very capable personality, and so by Pratyaksha and Anuman, he learned lessons of detachment, knowledge and detachment. And when you read the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, when you come to the 8th incarnation, because it's a list of incarnations, in the 8th incarnation is this one, is Dattatreya. Because towards the end of Chapter 9, it's disclosed by our acharyas. They all concur, like every one of them. The Avadhuta Brahman is Dattatreya. So he's personality Godhead. That kind of like, you know, he doesn't need a guru because he's personality of Godhead. But it says that in the Canto 1, Chapter 3, that he gave knowledge of the soul to various personalities, including Prahlad. Doesn't say when or how. And he gave knowledge to King Yadu and others, Haihaya and others. So that's Dattatreya. According to our acharyas, the person speaking that Krishna is making reference to is Dattatreya. Knowledge and detachment leading to bhakti. Now, there are Vaishnavas who worship Dattatreya, and there are impersonalists who worship Dattatreya. Just like there are persons that consider Sankhya philosophy who are impersonalists, and there are devotees that consider Sankhya philosophy. And you know, obviously, he's an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. He's not teaching impersonalism. He's teaching bhakti. But some misconstrue. So those are some details about the person who's speaking. But the main application point for us is to hear from this Avadhuta Brahman and understand same thing that Uddhava wants. How to become freed from attachment to the temporary so that we can know Krishna. It's not just information. It's not just knowledge that has no purpose, or like it's interesting, what's next. It's the application is to see things within the world that can help us understand how important detachment is and what it looks like. It's edifying. It is 3 chapters worth. It's important to get a foothold in bhakti, knowledge and detachment. And Uddhava is the perfect one to ask, and Krishna is the perfect one to answer. And even Krishna is making reference to someone else, although it's his own expansion, Dattatreya. So let's see if there's some discussion. Uddhava Gita.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. To the point which prostitute was looking, each individual. So also we learned that to see each and every, whether it is an animal or anyone who we interact with, to see what we can learn from. So in our connected to our daily interactions, we do see, whether it is at work or even other sampradayas, we do see good things where we should be able to imbibe them. But how do you take that with our philosophy?
They're subordinate to aparushaya shabda praman. That's the gold standard. We hold that understanding up to the aparushaya shabda praman, and we value it, provided there's alignment with that aparushaya shabda praman. And we respect. Even a prostitute can teach.
Yeah.
Even the wind, even a bird, even a fish, even a honeybee, even a...
Yeah. Something is there to learn from everyone.
Yeah, yes. Your wife has something.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, the controlling the tongue, it controls all the senses. But I wanted to understand, does it even control the desire to enjoy?
No.
Does
No.
it automatically become less?
No.
No, okay.
It's there's the channel of enjoyment. It doesn't control the desire to enjoy. It regulates and cleanses the instrument for enjoyment, but the desire to enjoy is of the soul. It's where it's directed. And bhakti is that which directs the desire in the proper way. Does that answer your question? We're not going to be able to get rid of desire by controlling the tongue.
So it refines the desire to enjoy towards the soul. Controlling the tongue refines and directs our desire to enjoy towards the soul.
It helps. It's like a compass that directs you to true north. Meaning Krishna should be the enjoyer. And the obstacle to that one is we have another kind of desire, and it has some outlets. It is flowing uncontrollably to those other outlets to enjoy objects selfishly. That's the material, contamination or material condition. So controlling the tongue, I guess one could look at it this way. There's the behavior and there's the consciousness behind the behavior. The behavior is controlling the tongue. And the consciousness behind the behavior is the tongue is meant for Krishna's pleasure only. And without that, it's not going to be controlled in a complete way, limited way, temporary way, but not complete. So bhakti is all I'm getting at here is bhakti is the operative principle, and there's something that can help remove obstacles for bhakti, and that's uncontrolled mind, uncontrolled senses. Okay?
Thank you.
Something else? Yes?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. In the 21st verse translation, I was reading, you were reading and I was listening. Spontaneous attraction towards Vishuddha Sattva is the cause or the need.
I'm listening. So what's your question?
So how should we understand whatever the emotions we are
How should we understand what?
whatever the emotions we are having in our sadhana or while the sadhana to be the spontaneous attraction towards Vishuddha Sattva, or we are getting
We're not there yet.
bewildered.
We're not there yet. We have some attraction, but not spontaneous attraction. We have other attractions. We're in the minimally. We're in the mixed stage. So now rephrase your question.
I mean, how to cause or cultivate causes for this?
What's the cause for attraction for Vishuddha Sattva only?
Yeah, so
That's a
that
pure
we cannot
heart.
get attached, to Krishna. I mean, it seems like I cannot.
I'm not sure what you're asking. I mean, if you follow sadhana bhakti properly, then that cleansing will take place in due course of time, and the unalloyed attraction towards Krishna will be the result. So the proper performance of sadhana bhakti leads to that stage. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, Maharaj, the process.
The process is sadhana bhakti.
Yeah, the process is right, and we can.
Sadhya and sadhana. Sadhana to reach the sadhya. And there's the sadhya. Here, that's what's the sadhana to reach there. It's sadhana bhakti. Anyone else? No?
I have one question, Maharaj.
Okay.
The Vishuddha Sattva, which we discussed just now, to have this is like having a singular mode, like a singular focus. Also, we learned here, I'm trying to connect the other things, like what Vilas Manjari asked about controlling the tongue and what we discussed. I would like to, this is not from my end, what I've experienced. We know that we need to have some prasadam and all. But questions with among devotees, what I've seen is controlling the tongue doesn't mean that overeating. That's another thing, right? Overeating is creating one of the example we see, one of the in animal as well. So we learned us some lessons there. The question is, we should not imitate towards what we want just for the sake of attaining bhakti. It's not
For
a
the
question
sake of what?
What I see is the lot of imitation rather than austerity to happen. So that imitation leads to other like frustration, anxiety, and other things.
It's right here.
Yeah. Actually, it's not a question. It's just like a reflection share.
And it's the same as what's being stated. Not too much, not too little. Same as Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
One who's regulated in eating, sleeping, work, and recreation.
Yes, ma'am.
Moderate. In moderation. And what's moderation? Well, it's different for different people. Bhima's moderation is something different than most people.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Any
online.
question?
Let's go online.
Snehavali Mataji. One second. In Nectar of Instruction and Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada does say that fasting on days like Ekadashi and Janmashtami will help restrain
Yes.
the demands of the belly.
Yes.
This is not mentioned in any of the purports, but only that by eating prasadam and chanting, one can control the tongue.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to say everything in one each time. It says something here and says something there. So nice nice addition, but it's not. There's not a defect in the purport because it didn't say it.
Yeah. So another question from Giridhar Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, before becoming Krishna conscious, we were taking food. After Guru's mercy, we are taking prasadam. I see it as a alignment towards bhakti. Should we think bhakti will be pure where we reach?
Should we do what?
I didn't get that question. Should we think bhakti will be pure when we reach there? I think that's what he meant.
Do you understand what he's asking? I don't.
Prabhu was saying that if I'm eating prasadam and
Can you give her the microphone?
Yeah, I got the question.
Okay, give her the microphone. Let her.
Giridhar Prabhu, I think he's saying that before I was eating food not offered, now I'm eating food that's offered, which is prasad. So by eating the prasadam, if I attain bhakti just through eating the prasadam, will that bhakti be pure? As opposed to
Gradually. Gradually. There's a few other things that one needs to do along with eating prasad. But yeah, gradually, because as purification does progress, then one will be attentive to other things and other things. Like, supposing one eats prasad, and they're an abuser of others, let's say, and it's possible. Then you're not going to attain bhakti, pure bhakti, by eating prasad and continuing to abuse others, or offending Vaishnavas or something like that. So there's other things that one needs to do, not just that one, but that's one. Something else? Online, anything? Not. No more. No, she's saying no. Shaking her head. Srila Prabhupada ki? Oh, you have something.
It's okay, Maharaj, if you're getting
Go ahead. You have nice questions. Even if they're not nice, go ahead.
Thank you. So in the purport, in your reading, you said that knowledge and detachment remove the obstacles on the path of devotion.
Well, they help, yes. It's not a shoe-in, but it's a help.
They help. So
because the obstacle is the attachment. It's not the thing, it's the attachment to the thing. It's ignorance. And ignorance is an obstacle. So knowledge diminishes ignorance. And as ignorance is diminished, then we can see more clearly. It doesn't guarantee anything, because one can have a relapse, or one can not use it for bhakti, or all kinds of possibilities. But it's helpful. When we went through this multiple times, there are angas of bhakti, and knowledge is not one of them. It's not, part and parcel of bhakti. The 9 processes, those are angas.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is not. But let's say what we're doing right now, hearing Uddhava Gita. It's bhakti because the purpose of it is to enhance bhakti. So it's not cultivation of knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's cultivation of bhakti with the assist of understanding the importance of detachment through knowledge. Of why should I be detached? But if someone understands why to be detached, it's not bhakti. But when we read Bhagavad Gita, we're not jnanis. But acquiring knowledge. It's knowledge. It's transcendental knowledge. And when we're reading Bhagavad Gita or hearing Uddhava Gita or whatever, it's nourishing bhakti. That's what's behind it. Although our conditioning may be, here's some more knowledge, here's some more knowledge. We're putting, information in our information basket over here and showing people how much we know. Or thinking good about ourselves because we know more than we knew yesterday. But that's not bhakti. But it's not like we don't read because, that's not bhakti. We just do bhakti. We read. But we read for the purpose of nourishing bhakti. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
All right. More? Done.
Done.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.